Hey, Dr. Skog, let me get going here. Andrew Jeremy Parham is my name, and I'm doing the topic, the seed of the woman. And I've got to get my timer up here. I'll have no idea how long I've gone. Okay. So I'm going to start out with a little summary, and I'm going to begin actually the way I began a sermon the other day, because I think that pulls it together for me. Then I'm going to go in through some of the research I've done. Okay. My little summary, as I was thinking about this, even today I wrote this. In Genesis 3:15, as I'll read later, the passage about the seed of the woman crushing the head of the serpent and the serpent striking his heel, we see that God has provided a way of salvation. So if we just trace that idea for just a second, okay, as you have done so many times, we see over in Noah that God preserves a remnant, including that seed, through the flood and through the ark. We see that God promises a seed to Abraham, and that Abraham's son is going to have a great nation and kings, and we begin to see this start to develop further. We begin to notice other things that start to happen. And we see that God chooses Judah ultimately from the sons of Jacob to be the one who's going to continue this process as he heads toward this king. Ultimately, we're looking at a king there in the passage about Judah and the scepter not departing from Judah. And then ultimately that sort of culminates with David. God chooses David as this line of this seed that's continuing through these covenants, through the Old Testament. And we see that ultimately God sends Jesus as the ultimate seed of the woman, born of the Virgin Mary, as we know. We see that he was the second Adam who, in fact, did everything right that Adam did wrong. When Adam fell in the garden, the Son of Man, the second Adam, the seed of the woman, reversed all of that. And that he died on the cross, that he was buried, that he rose again and defeated Satan. During his ministry, he served and continues to be, but he served as prophet, priest, and king, and I'll talk more about that in the paper. And he did all this all the way through the process of his humiliation and his exaltation that restores everything Adam broke. So that's kind of a summary of where I'm at. So this passage in Genesis 3:15 is a great passage. But I think the way I started it the other day, on Easter Sunday, in fact, was John 19, when Jesus spoke the words from the cross, "It is finished." Well, what was finished? Okay? And as his work on the cross is concluded, Jesus makes this declaration that something is complete, and it's more than his life. It's more than just the fact that he's died. It's this plan that I think we could go all the way back to, as you have done so many times, the Pactum Salutis, and just bring it all the way through and say that all of this work of redemption is done. And we know that Adam is given a role in the Garden of Eden as God's vice regent, to quote Wellum, which was a new term for me. I've come to terms that that's a good term, but it took me a little while. We know that in the garden, God spoke directly to Adam, and that we can see that in that sense, Adam had the word of God and was a prophet. We know that Adam was put there to subdue the earth, to rule over it, to exercise dominion, and he was therefore supposed to be a king under God. And we know that the garden into which Adam was placed was a sacred place, much like the temple, the Holy of Holies, that only the priest would enter, so that we see there's an element here in which Adam was a priest. When Adam sinned, he fell, and we all fell. And this prompted God to speak to the serpent this word that we're talking about today. He says, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." O. Palmer Robertson asserts this quote. This really helps. "The first declaration of the covenant of redemption contains in seed form every basic principle which manifests itself subsequently." So the seed of the woman as a title for Jesus points to Christ that is able to do what Adam could not. And that's what we see Jesus doing. And of course, That refers specifically to Romans chapter 5, where Paul says, in short, in brief, there just as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so sin spread to all men because all sinned. So because of that sin of Adam, we all are under death. Yet death reigned from Adam to Moses, even on those who sinned, whose sin was not like the transgression of Adam, who was a type of the one who was to come. I feel like I'm reading a little bit more than I should be. But in 1 Corinthians, Paul says this, though: the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how there was the development of prophet from Adam, Moses, and Christ. And we're going to look at priest, and then we're going to look at king after that, in short, each one. Okay, in what way was Adam a prophet? And in what way can we expect the seed of the woman to be a prophet? That's kind of the question. And I'm running out of time. So I'm going to deal with prophet in that way. I'm not going to cover all that. So I'm going to deal with priest. Deuteronomy 18:15 is prophet. Then we have Adam, David, and Christ the king, a section on that. And then we have the priest as well, which I'm going to focus on Melchizedek for that. So to kind of maybe conclude and sum up and maybe answer a question or ask a question or two of you, how should I end a paper is kind of one of my questions. But one of the things I'm thinking about is the idea that Christ was true humanity, sinlessness, yet he was true humanity, so that true humanity is not sinful. My question, I wonder, is there something we can say about humanity based on Christ's humanity? That's kind of the way I would like to end the paper, because Jesus, as the seed of the woman, is human. He's also divine, but this seems to emphasize his humanity. So what I'm wondering is there a way to extrapolate from Christ, the human, divine, human, but human, and as to what true humanity should look like? I've really enjoyed this class. I've had some struggles with this paper, but I've enjoyed the research, and I hope that ultimately you enjoy reading it. Thank you, Dr. Scott.